As we approach the later years of our lives, we desire to find peace, tranquility, and joy in the simplest things. Just as a garden requires careful nurturing, our soul too needs to be nourished by healthy relationships. However, not everyone brings peace to our lives. Sometimes, negative relationships weigh us down and make life feel burdensome. Here are 5 types of people you should be cautious of when maintaining relationships, in order to protect your soul during the golden years. 1. The manipulator, when goodness becomes a weapon. The manipulator always appears under a disguise that is difficult to recognize. They are not openly aggressive. Instead, they often wear a cloak of sympathy, offering sweet reproaches, or even what seems like unconditional sacrifice. They know how to touch the heart's compassion, exploiting weaknesses in others' emotions, responsibilities, and kindness to achieve their personal goals. When goodness becomes a tool for control, manipulation, and pressure, it is no longer goodness in its true form. In Buddhist teachings, one of the fundamental principles that the Buddha emphasized is that wisdom must go hand in hand with compassion. True compassion is not simply helping others unconditionally, it also means guiding them in the right direction, without creating more negative karma for oneself or for them. The Buddha once told the story of a wise doctor. When a patient came to him with a serious illness, he did not give out medicine recklessly. He carefully examined and identified the root cause of the illness before prescribing the right remedy. If the wrong medicine was given, the illness would not only remain but could worsen. Compassion is similar. Without wisdom, compassion can become an enabler of others' bad habits, becoming an accomplice to unwholesome actions. Looking deeper into the nature of the manipulator, we see that they too are people trapped in the cycle of ignorance and craving. They use the kindness of others for their own benefit, but they themselves are stuck in a state of unease, never satisfied with what they have. Once accustomed to controlling others, they gradually lose their sense of self-control, losing autonomy and becoming slaves to their own ambitions. Therefore, if we continue to blindly follow their unreasonable demands and help them without thought, not only will we be harmed, but they too will be dragged into a negative karmic spiral. Setting boundaries does not mean being selfish or indifferent. Setting boundaries is an expression of wisdom, helping us maintain balance in our lives and avoid being caught in toxic relationships. The Buddha taught that each person has their own karma, and no one can carry the karma of another. We can assist, but we cannot live someone else's life. When a person continuously relies on us, they will not learn their own lessons, will not grow, and will remain forever bound in weakness. Reflect on this. If a child is never allowed to walk on its own legs and is always carried, will it ever learn to walk? In the 42-chapter sutra, the Buddha taught, the wise person does not do wrong out of obligation, nor does one make others weak out of pity. The practice of true compassion requires discernment, the courage to say no when necessary, and the willingness to help others see the truth rather than indulging them in illusions. When we refuse an unjust request, the other person may feel hurt, may reproach us, or even become angry. However, a refusal that brings long-term benefit is far better than agreeing to something that will lead to suffering later. There are parents who always meet their children's every demand out of fear that they will be upset or disappointed. But this indulgence leads the children to become dependent, irresponsible, and lacking in determination in life. A friend who is afraid to say no to another out of fear of damaging the relationship gradually finds themselves being exploited, feeling exhausted and frustrated. A colleague who continually takes on another's work out of respect or obligation eventually burns out and becomes resentful. These situations are all too common in life, and if we do not know how to handle them, we can easily fall into the cycle of manipulation. So how can we recognize and break free from manipulation? First and foremost, we need mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us to discern the true motivations behind another's requests or words. When someone uses the past to apply pressure or manipulates us emotionally, we must pause and ask ourselves, is this sincerity, or just a form of manipulation? Once we recognize it, we need the courage to say no skillfully. There is no need for anger or argument, simply remain calm and firm in our stance. Like water flowing over a rock, not forceful, yet unyielding. The Buddha taught that each person is responsible for their own life. If we are manipulated by others, part of the fault lies with us for not protecting our boundaries. Others may set traps, but we have the choice not to step into them. Others may set nets, but we can choose a different path. When we live with mindfulness and wisdom, no one can control or exploit us. Thus, when dealing with manipulators, the best thing we can do is not to indulge them, but to help them realize that they cannot manipulate us. This may anger them, but in the long run, they will be forced to change and reflect on themselves. That is true compassion, compassion with wisdom, helping both ourselves and them break free from the bonds of karma and move closer to liberation. 2. The selfish, when solitude becomes a barrier. A selfish person does not always show cruelty or malice. They may be charming, attractive, and even well-liked in the eyes of many. But inside them is a world that revolves solely around themselves, where their needs, desires, and thoughts are always placed at the forefront. They may listen to others, but not to understand, rather, they listen waiting for an opportunity to talk about themselves. They may offer help, but often it is driven by personal gain, by the image they wish to project or by the recognition they seek from others. This self-referencing creates an invisible wall that separates them from the world around them, making them increasingly isolated, even when surrounded by others. In Buddhist teachings, selflessness and the renunciation of the ego are two of the most essential foundations for attaining inner peace. The Buddha taught that human suffering arises from attachment to the self, from seeing oneself as the center of the universe. When the mind clings too tightly to the I, one loses the ability to truly see others. Their perception becomes distorted, focused solely on personal gain. They seek love, friendship, and recognition, but at the same time, they shut the door to compassion, failing to truly care about the feelings and needs of others. Selfishness manifests in many degrees. Some people are simply indifferent, they do not intentionally harm others, but they never truly care. They listen without empathy, help without sincerity, and love without sacrifice. Other individuals may be more subtly selfish, using their charm to manipulate, to keep others around them, yet never truly valuing them. And then there are those whose selfishness creates an entire world where they are the center, where others are mere tools to satisfy their own needs. But deep within, the selfish are also suffering beings. They are isolated even within the world they have created for themselves. They may have many people around them, but these relationships are often shallow and lack depth. They may achieve many things in life, but still feel empty because they have never truly connected with anyone. By focusing only on themselves, they miss the opportunity to learn from others, to share authentic moments, and to experience the joy that comes from giving without expecting anything in return. In the Satipatthana Sutra, the Buddha taught that in order to escape suffering, we must learn to observe ourselves honestly. A selfish person often fails to recognize their selfishness because they always believe that what they do is justified. They may think they are protecting themselves, that they have the right to attention, that they deserve to be prioritized. But when they look deeply within, when they reflect on each thought, each word, each action, they will see that selfishness only brings isolation and suffering. To face a selfish person, we must possess both wisdom and compassion. Wisdom to recognize that not everyone can change, and that we are not responsible for changing them. Compassion to understand that they are also victims of their own attachment, of the ignorance within them. When we feel overwhelmed in a conversation, when we realize we are losing our own worth in a one-sided relationship, we must have the courage to speak up, to assert that we too deserve to be heard. However, if that person does not change, if they are not willing to open their heart to see others as they truly are, then we should not, out of pity, attempt to maintain a relationship that only brings harm. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, avoid bad friends, seek out those of wisdom and virtue. A toxic relationship is like polluted water. If we continue to drink from it, sooner or later, we too will be affected. Can a selfish person change? The answer is yes, but only when they truly want to. No one can change another unless they themselves see the need for change. Awakening only comes when they go through their own lessons, when they suffer enough to realize that their current way of life cannot bring true happiness. We can plant the seeds of wisdom, we can skillfully point out their selfishness, but ultimately, the change must come from within them. For us, as practitioners of the Dharma, the most important lesson when dealing with a selfish person is not to let their selfishness affect our own mind. We do not need to become angry, to resent them, or to try to change them at all costs. The key is to maintain inner peace, to keep our clarity so that we can recognize the boundaries, so we do not lose ourselves in an imbalanced relationship. In life, there will always be those who think only of themselves, but we have the power to choose how to respond. We can choose to face them with wisdom and compassion, instead of frustration and suffering. We can choose to maintain distance if necessary, instead of trying to hold on to a toxic relationship. And we can choose to live a life in which selflessness and generosity do not mean allowing ourselves to be exploited. When we learn to let go of relationships that do not bring peace, when we learn to preserve our own values without losing compassion, when we can see the selfish without judgment, without resentment, that is when we are truly walking the path of the Dharma. 3. The Critic, words as invisible knives. Words are one of the most essential tools that humans use to communicate, express thoughts, share emotions, and build relationships. A word can bring comfort, encouragement, and help someone find hope, but it can also become a sharp blade, deeply wounding the soul. In life, there are those who continuously use words to criticize, belittle, or impose their viewpoints on others, even though they may believe they are helping. They may claim they only want what's best for you, but the reality is that unconscious criticism can cause the listener to feel inferior, confused, and even lose trust in themselves. When someone is repeatedly subjected to disparaging words, blame, or harm, their mindset gradually becomes closed off, filled with doubt, and they lose the confidence to express themselves. This not only affects personal development but can also create long-lasting mental wounds. According to the teachings of the Buddha, words can create karmic effects, either positive or negative, depending on how we use them. If a person habitually uses harsh, sarcastic, or belittling language towards others, they are generating negative verbal karma. This karma not only affects the listener but also directly impacts the speaker's own state of mind. A person who frequently criticizes or speaks hurtfully will gradually lose the goodwill of those around them. Their mind remains unsettled, full of anger, and far from peace. On the other hand, someone who uses words to encourage, uplift, and share will nurture themselves in peace and compassion. The Buddha taught right speech, to speak truthfully, kindly, in ways that benefit others, and to express compassion. Right speech not only helps others avoid suffering but is also a way for the speaker to create good conditions in their own life. There are many reasons why a person might become prone to criticism and judgment. Some individuals have a need for control, wanting to impose their thoughts on others, believing that their way is the only right one. These people often lack open-mindedness and are less able to accept differences. Others carry within them a sense of insecurity, having been hurt in the past, and unconsciously repeat this behavior with others. They may have grown up in an environment full of pressure, constantly criticized, so when they grow older, they use the same harsh words on others, not realizing that they are repeating a cycle of harm. Additionally, some people are unaware of the power of their words. They believe they are just speaking the truth, not recognizing that the way they speak can have serious mental consequences for others. When they say, "I'm just helping you see your mistakes," or "I'm just being honest," they fail to understand that words are not only about content but also about the manner in which they are delivered. So, how do we face criticism? The important thing is to maintain our inner peace, not letting negative words affect our tranquility. If the criticism has value, we can listen and use it to improve ourselves. However, if the words are full of anger, degrading, or hurtful, we can gently let them go. The Buddha taught that if someone offers us a gift and we choose not to accept it, that gift still belongs to the giver. Similarly, if someone uses harsh words with us, but we do not accept them, those words cannot harm us. This is an important lesson in emotional mastery and not letting negative influences disturb our minds. There are many ways to respond to criticism. We may choose to remain silent to preserve our peace, as arguing with someone full of negative energy usually leads to no good results. Alternatively, if necessary, we can express our viewpoint gently and with compassion, helping them understand the issue without creating further conflict. However, the most important thing is not to allow ourselves to be caught in the spiral of pointless arguments. The Buddha taught that no one can please everyone. Even he, the enlightened one, was criticized and harmed, but he always maintained a calm mind, understanding that everyone is influenced by their own karma and ignorance. One essential method for avoiding the impact of criticism is to let go of attachment to others' judgments. When we become too concerned with others' praise or blame, we can easily become swept up in emotional fluctuations. When praised, we feel joy; when criticized, we feel sadness. But if we understand that every word is merely a reflection of someone's subjective viewpoint, we will no longer be overly concerned. If we wish to avoid negative energy, we should choose a positive environment, associate with wise people who listen and encourage each other on the path of self-improvement. If we must interact with those who constantly criticize, we can keep a distance and not allow them to affect our minds too much. In addition to dealing with others' judgments, we must also reflect on ourselves. Sometimes, we unknowingly use words to harm others without realizing it. Are we criticizing others simply because they don't do things the way we want? Are we using words that unintentionally hurt those around us? If we wish to avoid being hurt by criticism, we should proactively use kind speech, words that bring benefit, encouragement, and listen more than we judge. When we speak with compassion, we not only bring joy to others but also nurture our own minds. A word can harm a lifetime, but it can also be a light shining in the dark. The Buddha taught that a gentle word, easy to hear, full of meaning, beneficial, and non-harmful, is right speech. Therefore, let us use our words mindfully to keep our own hearts and the hearts of those around us at peace. 4. The irresponsible, when responsibility becomes a burden. In life, it is not uncommon to find individuals who continuously rely on the help of others without taking the initiative to resolve their own problems. Whether struggling financially, emotionally, at work, or in any aspect of life, these individuals choose to turn to others as their saviors to carry the responsibilities that rightfully belong to them. Initially, out of kindness, you may be willing to support, thinking you are doing a good deed by helping them overcome their difficulties. However, over time, these demands increase, becoming a heavy burden on your mind, depleting your precious energy and time. You may find yourself physically and mentally exhausted, feeling used, or forced to bear responsibilities that are not yours. Buddhism teaches that each person must be responsible for their own karma. Karma here is not just about past actions leading to present consequences but also encompasses the decisions, choices, and the way one lives in each moment. When someone consistently depends on others, they miss the opportunity to learn, practice self-reliance, and grow. Every difficulty in life is a lesson that each person must go through to cultivate wisdom and fortitude. If we continually intervene in this process, we are taking away their opportunity for progress, making them increasingly weak and unable to stand firm when faced with life's challenges. Imagine a chick in a nest. If we continuously feed it, without letting it learn to find food on its own, it will never know how to survive when it must leave the nest. Similarly, an adult who has never experienced hardship will never learn how to stand on their own feet. The Buddha taught that every individual has the potential to enlighten themselves, to find the path to liberation on their own. Even though the Buddha's compassion is boundless, he did not carry the karma of others but guided them to the right path so that they could practice and attain liberation by themselves. When we help someone without allowing them to grow, we are not truly helping them, but prolonging their weakness and dependence. When someone constantly avoids responsibility and waits for outside help, it can stem from various reasons. Some individuals have developed the habit of dependency from a young age, always having others resolve their problems, so they never had the opportunity to learn how to face challenges. Others fear failure and are unwilling to face the consequences of their actions, so they shift the responsibility to others. There are also those who simply lack motivation, desiring results without effort, seeking help from others as an easier path. If we do not recognize this, we may unintentionally become part of the problem instead of the solution. So, how can we help without encouraging dependency? First, we must clearly understand that compassion does not mean indulgence. Compassion in Buddhism comes with wisdom, which means helping in a skillful way, allowing others to stand on their own rather than blindly assisting them, which deepens their dependency. Sometimes, the best way to help is not by directly solving their problem but by guiding them to find their own solution. It's like when someone is thirsty, instead of continuously giving them water, we show them where to find the water. If someone faces persistent financial difficulties, rather than providing money over and over, we could help them manage their spending or learn a new skill to support themselves. If someone is struggling in relationships, instead of offering unconditional comfort, we could help them reflect on themselves, understand the root causes, and find better ways to interact. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a story about a person who came to ask the Buddha for help because his life was full of difficulties. The Buddha did not perform miracles or take on his suffering but instead taught him how to practice in order to transform those difficulties into lessons, how to view problems with wisdom rather than negative emotions. This illustrates that true help does not lie in doing things for others but in helping them develop awareness so they can find the right path on their own. Another important point to remember is not to let helping others become a burden on ourselves. If someone continuously depends on us without change, we must know how to set boundaries. Sometimes, saying no is also a way to help them grow. When we always play the role of problem solver, we may lose valuable time and energy that could be spent on ourselves, our family, and things that truly matter. A compassionate heart does not mean sacrificing ourselves to the point of exhaustion. If our assistance is making us tired, stressed, or losing our peace, we need to reflect on whether we are helping in the right way. Buddhism teaches that whenever we do anything, we must do it with mindfulness. When helping someone, ask yourself, is this help truly necessary? Does it help the person grow? Or am I making them more dependent on me? If the answer is no, perhaps we need to change the way we help or even stop so that they can learn to face life on their own. Each person's life is the result of their actions, thoughts, and choices. No one can live for someone else, and no one can bear another's karma. When someone continually avoids their responsibility, they are also creating more negative karma for themselves, as they are not learning their lessons and may cause suffering for those around them. If we want to truly help them, we must encourage them to walk on their own, even if it means they will stumble a few times before they can rise. A world where everyone takes responsibility for their own life would be a world with less suffering. When each person solves their own problems instead of waiting for help, society becomes stronger, and individuals have more opportunities to grow and improve. The Buddha taught that the path to liberation is one that each person must walk on their own. No one can walk it for us, and no one can enlighten us on our behalf. Therefore, let us help others with wisdom, with compassionate clarity, so they can learn to master their lives instead of becoming a burden to others. 5. The ungrateful one, when goodness becomes a habit. In life, there are those who never seem to appreciate the kindness that others offer them. Even though you may have wholeheartedly helped them, sacrificing your time, effort, and affection to support them in their time of need, they respond with silence, as if it were their due, and even complain or reproach you when you are unable to continue assisting them as before. Your kindness gradually becomes a habit in their eyes, and when that happens, the appreciation fades away. Eventually, you realize that you are mentally exhausted, losing the motivation to continue doing good deeds, because the ingratitude of others has wounded your heart. Buddhism teaches that when we do good deeds, we should not expect any return. In the scriptures, the Buddha emphasizes that giving and helping sentient beings should arise from genuine compassion, not from the expectation or hope of receiving something in return. However, this does not mean we should allow our kindness to be exploited or become a burden. If our kindness is not directed in the right way, not given to those who truly appreciate it, we may inadvertently facilitate the growth of greed, selfishness, and ingratitude in others. Observe the world around you. When a person receives help without effort, they are prone to becoming lazy and dependent. When a person receives excessive care without showing gratitude, they may become arrogant and take that care for granted. This is a form of karma we create when there is no wisdom in our compassion. The Buddha did not teach us to perform good deeds blindly, but to do so wisely, giving kindness to the right person, at the right time, and in the right place. There is a story in the Buddhist scriptures about a kind man who always helped everyone in his village. Anyone who faced difficulty, he would come to their aid. At first, people appreciated and were grateful to him, but gradually, they took his help for granted. They no longer made efforts to solve their own problems, but simply waited for his help. One day, he realized he could no longer help everyone because he, too, was becoming exhausted. When he stopped helping, instead of thanking him for his past efforts, the villagers blamed him, complained, and turned their backs on him. This story reflects the reality that when kindness is not controlled, it can become a double-edged sword. If we continue to help without allowing others to learn how to rise up on their own, we are not truly helping them but rather making them weaker and more selfish. If we keep giving without receiving appreciation, we are also hurting ourselves. So how can we help without being exploited? How can we maintain compassion without being hurt by ingratitude? First, we must understand that kindness must be paired with wisdom. In Buddhism, compassion is not weakness, but a strength capable of illuminating and guiding others to find their own path. If we help someone without teaching them the value of that help, we encourage ingratitude. If we show affection to someone without allowing them to recognize the value of that affection, we make them take our actions for granted. Observe a gardener. When planting a tree, they do not just water it indiscriminately, but consider the type of soil, the light conditions, and the tree's development. If the tree doesn't need much water but continues to be watered, it will rot at the roots and die. Our kindness is the same. If we keep giving without assessing whether the help is truly necessary, we may inadvertently foster laziness, irresponsibility, and decay in others. The Buddha taught that giving requires three factors: the giver, the receiver, and the manner of giving. If the giver lacks wisdom, they may harm themselves. If the receiver lacks gratitude, they may accumulate negative karma due to their greed and selfishness. And if the giving is not done properly, the charity may not bring true benefit. Therefore, when helping someone, always ask yourself, is this help truly needed? Will it help the other person grow? Or am I making them ungrateful and dependent? In life, there are those who appreciate what we do, and there are those who always demand more and never feel satisfied. When we encounter the ungrateful, we do not need to resent them, but neither do we need to continue sacrificing ourselves for them. If someone does not appreciate what they receive, it means they are not ready to receive it. When we give our time, affection, and energy to someone who does not appreciate it, we are wasting precious resources that could have been directed to those who truly need it. Learn to choose the people who deserve our kindness. This does not mean we are being selfish, but rather that we are using wisdom to place our goodness in the right place. When we help someone who is grateful, our kindness not only helps them but also spreads to many others. When we offer affection to someone who values it, that affection becomes more meaningful and enduring. Buddhism does not teach us to avoid the ungrateful, but to understand that everyone has their own karma. If someone does not appreciate what they receive, it is their karma, and we are not responsible for it. When we help without receiving gratitude, we can stop, not because we resent them, but because we understand that kindness needs to be placed in the right place to truly bring its value. A person who appreciates the kindness of others will always live with a heart full of gratitude, and it is this gratitude that will lead them to a peaceful and happy life. An ungrateful person will always live in dissatisfaction, because they never feel enough, never content with what they have. Remember, kindness only has real meaning when it is offered with wisdom, and when it helps both the giver and the receiver become better people. In the final years of your life, your time and energy become incredibly precious. Not everyone deserves to be by your side, even if they are family. It is important to choose relationships that bring you peace, joy, and help you grow spiritually. The Buddha taught that happiness and peace come from within. Do not let anything outside overshadow that. Cherish those who walk with you sincerely, who listen and respect you. At the same time, know how to say no and maintain personal boundaries with negative relationships. In this way, the golden years of your life will be meaningful and fulfilling, where the heart is nourished by love, respect, and inner peace.